Although the interminable debate over the terms of Britain's exit from the European Union make it look less like hard or soft and more like just plain mushy, progress is being made. Talk is now gravitating toward the important distinction between what will happen in the years immediately following the exit in March 2019 and what the relationship might look like longer term. Whatever bluster there is about red lines and hard Brexit, it seems both sides acknowledge that realistically there will be a transition period that puts Britain in the same boat as Norway or Switzerland. These members of European Free Trade Association have an arm's-length relationship with the EU but are subject to some of its core rules, notably the two that Brexiteers find most objectionable, the free movement of people and jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. The government of Prime Minister Theresa May is quietly resigned to the fact that these two conditions will remain in place for considerable time after the country's official departure. But so what? Negotiators on both sides are grappling with unprecedented legal and technical issues in a political pressure cooker, and there is no way they can resolve them all in just 2 years. Nitpickers are arguing whether the transition should be off the shelf, that is, an existing model like Norway or Switzerland, or bespoke, which is British English for tailor-made. They are wondering whether Britain should continue to be in the European Economic Area, like Norway, Liechtenstein and Iceland, or just in EFTA, like Switzerland. Because it is the only EFTA member not in the EEA, Switzerland has a slightly longer arm in its arm's-length relationship with the EU. They debate whether Britain, which is automatically a member of the EEA through its EU membership, needs to formally give notice for leaving the EEA in addition to its divorce filing with the EU. And what about the customs union? Any wonder that Leave supporters are eager to get out of this legalistic alphabet soup beneath the technocratic tangle, however, are very real questions of what will happen with travel and the exchange of goods and services between Britain and the rest of Europe. Just how complicated, burdensome and expensive will it be? Accepting a transition period with things pretty much at a standstill is the first indication that common sense may prevail. It is in the interests of both Britain and the rest of the EU to maintain a relationship that is as frictionless as possible. Nobody wants the British economy to go off a cliff, but opening up a trade gap would create steep cliffs on both sides. Continental companies could ill afford to be shut out of the large and prosperous British market. Part of the muddle is confusing a transition period with whatever long-term arrangement is negotiated. Brussels has exacerbated this issue by not allowing negotiations over any permanent agreement on trade, travel, military cooperation or whatever to take place until the exit itself is finalized. In part, this is to give Brussels leverage in exacting what it considers an appropriate exit fee. Politico Europe reported this week that the two sides appear to be converging on a payment of 10 billion liras a year for 3 years. This could neatly cover any fee for Britain to keep access to the single market during the transition, the Politico reporters suggest. The worry for Brexiteers would be that any transition via EFTA-EEA could turn into a permanent position, leaving Britain with all the disadvantages of EU membership and little voice in its deliberations. Given the power of inertia and the ambivalence of the electorate, it is a concern that is not totally unfounded. The Independent reported this week that queries from London financial firms about opening offices in Dublin have dropped off markedly since the June the snap election robbed May of her majority. The feeling is that voters have undermined her hard Brexit pledge and the door is open for Britain to stay in the single market. Be that as it may, with nearly 1/5 of the time available for the Brexit negotiation already used up, there will be little alternative to an EEA-EFTA bridge for Britain. The final decisions must be made well before the March 2019 deadline, so in reality there is little over a year to decide what will happen after Brexit is official.